And we are coming to you again from Tribal in Hull, everyone. We are in front of what looks like, but is it 60 or 70,000 people, you'd say, John? But it's like
it looks like 100. It's grown.
It looks like 100. It's getting busier down here. Good people of Hull, make some noise! Oh, they're a rowdy bunch. They're a rowdy bunch. There's a lot of red tops, John, out there, aren't there? A lot of red.
And white tops.
A lot of red. Any Hull fans? Any Hull FC fans? Ooh, couple.
One. Very brave one. Well done.
Brave one. I just went for a piss actually, and gentleman at the urinal said to me, "Who was the other fella on stage next to near John?" I said, "That's Mark Flanagan."
That was me. Yeah, I
just just looked at me with glazed eye. Just so he played halfback in the grand final for St Andrews. Glazed eyes.
Yeah, we won that game as well. So.
And there was also another chap who came up to me and said, like, "Tell Mark Flanagan, we will not forget how forward his pass was in that £1 million game."
He wasn't forward, sorry, but he wasn't.
Was it forward, everyone?
It was flat. Sorry.
They're going to let your tyres down outside. And actually, John, a little message from your mum as well. Bless her, Carol, who's still up on the Royal Box up there with Big Phil, giving us a wave. Always giving us a wave. Carol, she went, "Don't read any of those nasty tweets out about him again."
So how many gins has Carol Wilkin had?
How many gins have you had, Carol? None of your business, she said.
15.
She said, not enough gins, none of your business.
Carol likes a gin, doesn't she? Likes a gin.
I think she does.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys are going to be very interested in this. A big round of applause. Please welcome to the podcast, Hull KR Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Paul Lakin, everybody.
You've got to be happy with that response.
Sounds more military than officer.
I always worry about why is it officer at the end of it? Chief executive sounds.
I have not got a clue.
They added the O recently, didn't they, over the last 10 years? Because you were chief exec before. Now it's chief executive officer.
Do you know? I don't know. I've no idea.
CEO sounds better than CE.
CEO.
I think so. Yeah,
like
but it is. Yeah,
MBE,
I don't know why I'm an officer, but yeah, apparently I am.
Look, I know there's a lot of people here who know all about you, but obviously a lot of people listening, Paul, who won't know much about your background. And we'll get on to your life in football with Wolverhampton Wanderers and Stoke in a bit. But the young boy Lakin, Grimsby boy.
Yes, Grimsby boy.
So not necessarily rugby league heartland area, but what was life like then as a kid? Did you have aspirations of being a sports person? What were the dreams? Who were the heroes?
Yeah, well, my dad was a professional footballer, so football was very much in our.
Can't just drop that one. But who did he play for?
Well, mainly Leeds United he started with, and then mainly Grimsby Town.
Oh wow!
Hence why I found myself born in Grimsby.
Brilliant.
But he played like 400 plus games professionally. So my dad was a footballer, so football was very much in our family. I was a Leeds United fan because, again, my dad playing for him in his early years. So, but rugby league didn't exist really in Grimsby. I mean, as everybody knows here, it's only over the bridge, Humber Bridge, but didn't really exist. So it was all about football. I wanted to be a footballer like millions of others. I made a big mistake of finding the position of right back, which is where my dad played. So I was only ever known as John's lad, because I couldn't run as fast as my dad. I couldn't head as far as my dad. So I was always labelled under my dad's shadow. But
what a place, though, Ellen Road. So as a kid, you would have gone down there. You would have hung around the dressing rooms and around those players at Ellen Road.
Occasionally at Leeds, but it was mainly at Grimsby. My memories are more when we actually retired, and when he was in lodgings as a player, his two other lodgers was Howard Wilkinson, who was the big manager went on to be big manager at Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday.
Gave David Beckham his debut.
Yes, and I remember then when he'd retired, I was a young lad, and he'd take me to go and have a pre-match meal with the Leeds boys when Howard was the manager. In the days when they'd have steak and chips and everything like an hour and a half before kick-off. So, and they were good memories for me. So, and he went on to be a manager himself in non-league, and I'd hang around footballers all the time. When I was a young lad, I'd sit in the changing room, he'd tell me to put my hands over my ears and not tell my mum, and then he'd go effing and jeffing at everybody in the changing room. So, yes, it was all football then, all football.
So how early were those fantasies crushed? You're not going to make it, Lakin. Get back to something else.
Oh, probably when I was about 17, 18, I had a few trials and I was at Barnsley. I remember going to Barnsley for a 2-week trial and Alan Clark was the manager. And he never spoke to me once in 2 weeks. And I thought, I don't stand much chance here.
Unless he's playing, a really interesting game.
Yeah, and I remember having the big trial game that was all set up for me, and a couple of other lads that were brought over. And again, I just got a sense, and I just thought, and I think in yourself, I knew I wasn't quite good enough. So I was 17, 18. I thought, well, I'll just play local football with my mates.
I think most rugby league players are frustrated footballers, want to be professional footballers, but when they get that conversation, 2 things cross their mind. Are you big and are you stupid? And they go, yes, go and play rugby league. Because you play rugby league and most players want to play football, don't you?
Yeah. I think we're absolutely. I think football is like the benchmark sport, isn't it, in our country for young people? Yeah. It's aspirational. Yeah. For a lot of young people.
Depends what town you've grown up in.
It does, but also in towns like Hull and even in St Helens. I played in St Helens for a number of years, and a lot of the kids, you go into schools and they've got Liverpool and Everton shirts on, and that I will get onto.
It is the
business.
national game, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll get onto the business side of it, but that's a big challenge for us. This is why Australian rugby league does so well. Is working class wise, actually, it hasn't got the competition of soccer or football.
Agree.
And we've got that here now, and it's a different challenge. Anyway,
well, LinkedIn's a wonderful place because I know you studied sports science and recreation at Grimsby Institute and University. So in those years building up to that, was it always going to be something sport?
Yes, because I was not much good at anything else. So if I couldn't play it, then it was like, how do I get involved in it? So so I wanted to be involved in sport. I started out as a lifeguard. Then I decided...
Any dramas, any savings?
No. Started out as a lifeguard, got involved in local leisure centre, and then I was a young lad and I ended up, for a variety of... I blagged my way to assistant manager within 2 years. I just had the unbelievable luck from being a lifeguard to, person left who was above me, then I said, I can do it, and I got it. Then the next person went on maternity leave, or I'll do it for 6 months, and she never came back. Before you know it, I was like 19, I was assistant manager, so...
Did that come from your dad, the grafter side of it?
Yeah, my dad was a grafter. Yeah, proper grafter, yeah. And in fact, to be honest, I always remember him saying to me that the most he ever earned was when he actually went and part-time at the end of his career and had a job and trained 3 times a week. Sorry, trained twice a week, played on the weekend and had a full-time job.
That's mental, isn't it? Considering what the club he played for.
I know.
It's crazy times, how football was back then.
I know.
So I'm just trying to build a picture here, as you say, not that far really from where we are now in Hull, Grimsby, across the water. But not long after coming out of university, your first job, you worked in commerce, and you worked in a commercial department for 4 years. Where was it? Sport Global?
No, I worked in the leisure centres for quite a while. Then I went over to Hull, came over to Hull, and worked. I ended up running all the leisure facilities over here. Mm-hmm. So there's like 9 leisure facilities over here. First group was the word I was thinking of. First group, yeah. Okay, that was Hull Trains. So I did the leisure facilities over here. So ran Woodford, Ennerdale, Costello. There was golf courses, Springhead, and various Albert Avenue, Baths as it was. And there's about 9 different sites. So I was involved in all of that, and then, but it was local government, and I hated local government, and I hated having, I was going to say one hand tied behind my back, but probably 2 really. So I knew I had to get out there into private enterprise really, and then First Group. I don't know how the conversation started, but First Group talked about setting up this direct trains Hull to London, and I ended up having a conversation about it, and then I got the job as commercial director for First Group for this. I don't know a thing about trains. I still don't, but it was a great few years, because it was what really attracted me to the job was it was new, it was fresh. At the time, trains had a really bad name. They probably still have really in terms of service, being dirty, staff being rude, etc. And we were starting this train service from scratch. So I was doing the marketing behind it, and we just decided to do the exact opposite of what all the trains services were doing. So we went for customer service, and we handpicked the staff, and it was really successful. I mean, everybody will know in the room, it's still running now. So about 8 times a day to London. So really enjoyed that. And I was really pleased that I took myself out of local government because completely different world, private enterprise, and First Group, who were a London-based company, I'd invested an awful lot of money into a project that they weren't taking any prisoners on. So it had to work.
What was your big frustration with the local government stuff?
Accountability. Because in local government, nobody has accountability. Because there isn't that one boss. Right. So it's always their department, or he's off, she's off. And nobody really grasps hold of a problem. It just sits. When you talk about local government and they say, things take ages for things to happen, it does. And having been involved in it, it's just, if you want to make things happen, it's so frustrating. Yeah.
So you don't have to lie here as well. Back then, how much rugby league were you watching? Were you absorbing? I mean, you don't have to say like Tony Blair, you went up to Newcastle, or you had a season ticket next to, David Cameron at West Ham. In politics, in that kind of world, they always sort of, put some gloss on top of it. But was it a part of your world, rugby league, before you got the job at Hull KR back in 2004?
I'd never been to a game.
Honesty, I like it.
Never been, well, a slight lie. So Neil Hutchell, the owner, someone introduced us. I've got a shocking memory, really, but someone introduced us, and Neil asked me to come on board at Hull KR back in 2004, and I said no. And then he came back to me again on it, and I still wasn't sure at all. And people in the room will be able to tell you, but we were in the playoffs at the time, and I decided to go to the game without telling anyone. And I stood in the middle I wanted to know where the boys were. So I stood in the middle of the East Stand and didn't tell anyone. And they got absolutely hammered. Something like 50-odd points to 6. Can't remember who it was. Featherstone. And it was the old, your old season ticket books. And people were lobbing the season ticket books on the pitch. What a load of crap. Never coming, because that was it, end of the season. And I thought, I want some of this. That really excited me.
Just rewinding a little bit.
Yeah,
I know.
Very silly.
But do you know what?
This is really bad. I want in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the passion, I felt the passion from everybody around me. And I thought, purely on the business side, I thought, we can do something with this. I knew Neil was...
How did the Neil relationship come about? So, because Neil came to you.
Yeah, we were mutually introduced. I can't exactly remember who did it, who was at fault. But... yeah, we were mutually introduced, and I suppose we just hit it off from then onwards, really. And it was came into Hull KR for 2004.
And you were chief. Was it straight away in at chief exec?
For 6 months, I was commercial for 6 months, and then went into chief exec. But it was a part-time club then. There was very few full-timers.
Just describe, because everyone watching here will know, but just describe for people who aren't as connected with Hull KR what that club was like in 2004, how different to now, because it was only 2 years after John Wilkin had left the place.
How the club is now is worlds away. There was hardly any staff. When people say you were involved in a club and you'd shut the car park gates and shut the bar, and I literally did. I learned so much. So I genuinely did. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have got into football. No doubt about it. So, and there was probably off the field, seriously, outside of the rugby department, there was probably about 5 of us. So, and I remember, not every week, but most weeks, it was how we're going to pay everybody. Literally how we're going to pay everybody.
And that's great learnings, I think, for a CEO to have that background, because you have a holistic view of how the club runs, from shutting the gates to paying people to seeing what the janitor does. Every single aspect of the business, you probably got a bit of an insight from 2004.
The janitor.
The janitor.
I know. I was an all, I think, at times. Do you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. At the time, I thought, this is ridiculous. I was doing everything, but... as we'll go on to talk about further on in my career, a conversation later happened that I realised that what I did made my career in football.
I loved my time at Hull KR when I was first there, because there was an amazing time. It was on a Thursday. The Dogs were on. We used to have the dogs running around the track. But
They'd finished before I arrived.
No, yeah, but we used to train. But the greyhounds would run around the track at the end. But they'd race them around the edge of the track at the end of training. But there was like this standoff between the rugby club and the greyhound sort of department of the club. And so we'd be still on the field practicing. And we had Fetu Taiwa who was there, who was a Kiwi sort of international, had come over. And he was stood in the middle of this pitch, greyhounds running around, and we were being told not to kick any balls towards the dogs. He was like, what's going on?
Foaming at the mouth as well.
It was a good time.
That was, you picked up on it, which is interesting, that moment against Featherstone, where you said, I want some of this.
Yeah.
It's interesting because to me on the outside, and tell me I'm wrong, and again, many years on, having been to Wolves and Stoke, which we'll get to, it seems a very unrewarding role to want to go into, being a CEO, because sometimes it can be, it can be lose-lose, can't it?
I just had that feeling that, I suppose, going back to your original point, always wanted to be involved in sport. So, and I'd been involved in sport in terms of the public service side from the local government, so it was a flip into the professional sport side. And I felt confident enough I could do it. Back then, Neil was a lot more hands-on too. So it wasn't just me, it was me and Neil. And there was a board then of a few others. But yeah, I mean, came in part-time. Harvey Howard was the coach. He soon moved on.
Harvey Howard.
Yeah. And then I was pushing Neil really early on, and I remember saying to Neil, if you want to do anything with this club as a starting point, we've got to go full-time. We've got to go full-time. So in the first season, we actually went full-time with about 10 games to go, just to sort of feed our way into it. And it was quite interesting because a lot of the players couldn't handle the switch from part-time to full-time during it halfway through a season, which is understandable. But we went full-time the following year, and we brought Justin Morgan in as the coach, who was 29 at the time. And it was a gamble. It was a gamble. It was over in France. And we had four. Well, I was there for 4 years. We had 4 really good years. Really good years.
That's a lot of trust from the owner, though, isn't it? With all respect, someone who hadn't worked in sport. And I know you were trying to take this club to somewhere more like it is today, having been away from it for a while. Yeah. But were there doubts in your mind, thinking, Jesus, am I making the right decision? Not knowing what you were doing on a weekly basis.
100%, absolutely. There were times in the early days where, I was probably blagging it, to be honest. But I knew that I would get it right, and I knew that. And it sounds cheesy, but you work your ass off, and you'll get there. And if I made mistakes, I made a real point of never making the same mistake twice, which is something that has always stuck in my mind, and I'd like to think I probably never. So, we won the National Rail Cup, we got promoted. Really proud of the fact I think we was the first team in about 4 years to actually stay up when we got promoted. And I think we had a good time. We had a good time.
So you had 4 years as chief exec there, a little bit 6 months before on the commercial side of it. You're already building this picture that all the building blocks are being put down and the club's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So then the big move to football, to the footballing world. And I think you were at Wolves for a season and then they were promoted to the Premier League. I mean, that is a million miles away from, with all respect, to OKR at that time. But how tempting then was it to go to football, and how easy was that move for you?
Well, do you know what? It was an absolute whirlwind. I remember to this day I was in my office and the phone rang, and it was an unknown number. And I don't normally answer unknown numbers, and clearly I took it that day. And the guy just said, the football club's interested in talking to you. And I remember saying, who? And they said, can't tell you. I said, well, I can't tell you if I'm interested then. It was a bizarre conversation. Anyway, then he said Wolves. And I was like a little bit taken aback, really, if I'm honest. And I said, yeah, okay. We'll go over and talk to him. So I went over the following week to see him at something like 9 o'clock in the morning. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're showing me the training ground. I'm thinking, this feels like they might be interested. Next day, they offered me the job, and then I had to talk very quickly to Neil, because I think I had about 3 months' notice, but football clubs aren't interested in stuff like that. So I think I was in a hotel in Wolverhampton within 2 weeks, and my family came about 4 months later.
And your head of commercial there, I was talking to John just before we started. I was thinking how different those two worlds would have been at that stage. The Premier League came quite quickly after you were there, as I said, at Molineux. So in terms of attracting brands, head of commercial, I mean, you're attracting 185 countries at the click of a finger, whereas in Rugby League, you are scratching around to get the local builders to sponsor the East Stand.
Yeah.
How different was that world?
Oh, so different. I mean, first of all, the chief exec at Wolves was a guy called Jez Moxey, and I went to see him around the job, and so it was June, so it was before the next season. And like I say, I'm from a football background, so I'd like to think I knew a bit about football. They're in the Championship. He was saying, we're going to go up this year. We're absolutely going to go up this year. And I thought, there'll be about 14 clubs in this league saying that this year. But I just had a good feel about it. And as you say, they won the league in year one. And I think when you work in sport, you do need luck. You really do need luck. You need luck to make sure you've got the right owners. And you've got to go where your gut a little bit. It was a massive decision for us as a family. My wife's from Hull, been in Hull all her life, never moved before. And I'm saying within 1 week, we're going. And she couldn't get her head around it.
I can't imagine. I'm just trying to get my head inside.
Yeah, clearly, because it took her 4 months to follow me.
Did she dig her heels in? Was it 4 months? Genuine 4 months to get them to get it sorted, or was it her anchoring and saying, look, this might not?
Yeah, no, she did. She agreed pretty quickly, but I don't think she rushed to follow.
I'll come next week.
Yeah.
And then next week.
Yeah. So, and then first year at Wolves, won the league, and straight into the Premier League, and it's global. And it was so intense. I can't tell you how intense it was, because Wolves are a really big club. And completely shocked me how big they were. I thought from being in Hull, I thought Wolves, okay, we'll be competing with Birmingham and West Brom, the Midlands. Nothing like that. They don't go down south at all. They've got a whole county to themselves in Shropshire. And that's why Wolves are such a big club. So,
well, that's appealing to someone who's head of commercial, the catchment area, isn't it? And you add in, I know it wasn't particularly hands-on in terms of what's happening on the pitch, but your achievements are, put in the piggy bank of what Mick McCarthy could spend and what a character he had there as a manager.
Oh, outstanding. Worked with a couple of managers that really stood in my mind. One at Stoke, but Mick McCarthy was the one at Wolves. He was anyone who knows or seen Mick on TV, he is exactly off camera as he's on camera. A straight talking Barnsley guy. There was days when I'd go, Mick, and he would just them to go, fuck off. Yeah. And you thought, and you did. And there's other days, it'd say, sit down, lad. You could have a coffee and you could talk, and, but he was, do you know what? As a manager, he was brilliant at understanding what a club meant on and off the field. He was really good at pulling the whole club together. And he was really good with, I thought, with the younger players. He was a quality guy. He didn't pull no punches, but again, someone who worked really hard.
Did you take it for granted then, being at that stage a Premier League club, of how easy it was to get things done compared to what you'd been doing for 4 years at Hull KR?
Well, the first thing I learned was you're only as good as the people around you. And I've really taken that, because I suddenly went into Wolves and I had loads of staff, and some bloody good staff too. And going from doing everything in my previous roles to having some really good staff, and I realised then that you get time to think in the bigger clubs if they're well staffed, because you've got
but
good
more
people
pressure,
around you.
more
But
spreadsheets, more judgment, more annual reviews.
Yeah, and it is intense in the Premier League, because so we went straight up, and obviously first time I was in there, and certainly in commercial, you're up at 5 a.m. talking to Asia, and then in the evening you're talking to America and US, and commercially you're talking to companies. It's global, as you say, it's global. So the hours you worked, I was told that, a bit like what they say about if you're a young lad going into stock exchange, it will burn you out, because you can you have to throw yourself into it. And they said that about working in the Premier League. They said if you do 5 years, you've done really well in commercial, because it burns you out, because it's just such long hours.
And the gap in money between Championship and Premier League, even back then, would have been tens of millions, I'm estimating, as a commercial director.
Yeah. I mean, your point, in the Championship, you're still trying to sell a stand. Yeah, in the Premier League, the owners aren't interested in you selling those stands. They're after global deals. And at the time, the betting industry was really kicking off, and there was betting deals all over the place, and and a lot of Asian and overseas companies. So, yeah, it was an intense time, but yeah, really enjoyed it. I learnt an awful lot at Wolves. It was an absolute roller coaster because we had 3 years at Wolves in the Premier League, and then I think they were one of only about 8 clubs to be double relegated. So straight down into the Championship, straight into League One.
And you had bloody Jamie O'Hara playing for you.
Yeah, Jamie O'Hara, yeah. What a dead loss he was.
He's done all right on TalkSport at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
Look, we'll fast forward through the football stuff because I know everyone watching here, we want to hear more about what you're doing now and the impact you're going to have on Hull KR going forward. But you had 6 years at Wolves. You then had 6 years at Stoke City.
Yeah.
And Stoke were in the Premier League for 10 years and eventually relegated. So you saw the impact the other way in terms of what that can have then and going down. And Rob Elson said to us before, in this sort of world, you get headhunted, you've got to keep moving around. You can never, I mean, 6 years is about, and you've seen there's a bit of a theme to your movement, isn't there?
Yeah. It was a phone call. I go back to luck, but genuinely, you do have to be lucky because, I'd done 6 years at Wolves, and I was thinking to myself, they might want to move me on soon because, they do move.
So there's paranoia in that sense of
they do
people
move
behind
people
you.
around, and we'd moved to Stafford in the middle of the country, and I remember sitting down only a few months earlier, and I thought, there ain't many clubs here that I can commute to without having to move house again. And as it happened, Stoke was one of the ones that I could commute to. In fact, it was about equidistant to Wolverhampton, but in the other direction. So when they called me and they were in the top 10 of the Premier League, it was a 1-minute decision.
You talk about characters in football. You've gone from Mick McCarthy, I know that you sort of went towards the end of your reign at Wolves, to Tony Pulis.
Yeah, well, I didn't work with Tony.
Oh, you weren't there with him?
No.
14, he'd gone?
Yeah, he'd gone.
Yeah.
It was Mark Hughes, Sparky,
Yeah.
So I worked with Mark, and he had 2 lieutenants, Mark Bowen and Eddie Niedzweski. And Mark was a top bloke. Top bloke. Everyone thinks of him as Manchester United, but he was out. He did Barcelona, did Bayern Munich. He was a top guy.
So all these years of Premier League experience, was the plan? And again, be honest, but was the plan to go back to rugby league one day, or did you want to stay in football?
No, always in my mind.
Okay.
Always in my mind. And when I left Hull KR 2008, so myself and Neil, I've always been really solid mates. So. Because of football, it took me to London quite a lot, Premier League, and Neil's work was in London quite a lot, so we would meet up all the time. We'd often go out for a night out during all the time I was in football, so he would often ring me about Hull KR issues, and I would often ring him about, we were just mates, helping each other out, so we was always in touch with each other. And then I knew that my wife always wanted to come back to Hull at some point, so that was always in my mind too. And then about 4 years into Stoke, Neil sort of said about, should we talk about maybe, coming back, blah, blah, blah. And I sort of said, now's not the right time, but let's keep talking. And then, we decided that it was the right time.
And I see you say it was the right time, but you came in November 2020, which was only a few months after peak pandemic.
Yeah, it wasn't the right time.
What an intense time to come into a rugby league club. I mean, it's one thing coming into a Premier League club during the pandemic. Yeah. Rugby league was on its arse. Yeah,
well, I was actually due to start in March. And because of the pandemic, I was very lucky that, I had a conversation with Neil, and Neil said, we're in trouble here. The sport's in trouble, we're in trouble. And I was lucky enough that Stoke kept me on, even though I'd handed my notice in. They'd kept me on for 6 months. So again, luck. I was really lucky. But, talking to Neil all the time, and I said, come on, we can do this. And he wanted to sell the club. So
I remember reading that, actually.
Yeah. And I knew all of that. And I knew that I was actually coming back to sell the club for him. But I also knew, because of our friendship, that I also knew, maybe arrogantly, I don't know, that if we could turn the club around, he'd stay. Because he just absolutely loves the club. But he was disillusioned, properly disillusioned, for lots of reasons, but mainly one of the reasons was, as any sort of owner, he was putting a lot of money into the club, and the club was struggling year in, year out.
There's nothing dissipates passion more than losing a load of money, is there?
100%, and and he'd had enough. So perversely, I was coming back to really, in my head, try to kick on with the club and improve the club, but he thought I was coming back to sell it for him. So,
and look, at this time, you were obviously, you would have been privy to a lot of the conversations with the government and so on. I mean, how close were Super League clubs, and particularly clubs with lesser budgets like Hull KR, to just being a thing of the past?
That would never have happened with Neil. I mean, some clubs were really near the knuckle, but no, he's an outstanding owner, a proud man. The club means so much to him, and he would always have supported the club to get it through.
Yeah, I think that deserves a round of applause.
And
never
it's
in question.
It's interesting because it is a club with no board, no chairman, still to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just me and Neil.
That's unusual.
Yeah, very unusual. But do you know what? It's how we both wanted it. The discussions were that so Neil was, disillusioned up with the club, and I wanted to run the club lock, stock and barrel, to be honest. And that worked really well for Neil, because I wanted Neil to get back to his day job, which was being a brilliant lawyer. And that's what we agreed on, that he would be there for us as a club, financially outstanding, but he'd be there for me, somebody to talk to, but he'd leave it to me. And we'd just catch up when we needed to catch up, use him as a sounding board, which I do all the time. And that's what's transpired, really. I mean, for Neil himself, he's gone in, he was a brilliant lawyer, but he's had the most successful 2 or 3 years with national, the Postmasters case, which Neil's heavily involved in. He's done an outstanding job there. It's national coverage. So he's gone back to doing that, and I run the club.
But it's such a paradox to what you just described with Wolves and with Stoke, and having, minions.
Yeah, completely different. But at the same time, it's flat and it's clean and it's refreshing.
Is it more rewarding doing what you do now?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It feels more real.
Yeah, it's honestly like just the two of us saying, right, this is where we're at. What do we need to do?
Well, businesses become more complicated. Like, the bigger they get, they become more complicated, and bureaucracy fills it. And then you get tiers of management, and then you get boards, and then you get middle management who does nothing, and then you just get this really complicated structure where loads of people get paid, and it's well, why?
I know, and I used to say to Neil when I was out the sport, but still talking to him a lot, I used to say, so and so board member, what does he do? What's he on the board for? If he's not there to put money in, he must be there to give you advice, to help you. And they weren't. I was like, I don't think you need him.
Everyone here will be wanting to hear your vision for the club. You've been back in the role 18 months. What's realistic, and what's on that, the sketchboard in your office?
Oh, fiercely ambitious. What's realistic? We want to be challenging, but I understand fully that the structure wasn't there in the club. The structure wasn't there in the academy. To be your St Helens, to be your Wigans, for every top player, marquee player, you need your academy lads coming through. It's a salary cap sport. And this club hasn't been good enough at getting the academy lads playing into the first team, and that's something that is very, very much on the forefront of my mind, because I think recruitment-wise, we can certainly be better, but we have got better, and we will get better. One of the biggest things I learned from coming out of football was, do you know what? It might be a much smaller sport, but I don't think the recruitment and the processes in the recruitment in rugby league are that great. I actually think because it's a smaller sport, it's its downfall. Everybody knows somebody who can, it's pick up a phone, but I don't think there's enough hard work done in terms of picking out a player from the championship, who may have missed a grade initially in Super League, gone back to working and then, has kicked on at a later stage in his career. And I don't think there's enough work done at recruitment, and that's something that equally, I'm really keen for us to do.
I couldn't agree more. You look at
I
Alex
think it's
Walms.
lazy.
Alex Walms is probably one of the best players in the competition. He was at Batley for many years. Saints signed him, saw a bit of potential. How much money would he be worth now to a club like KR or anybody?
Yeah, I think recruitment, I mean, in the sport that we play, you either produce loads of good young players or you try and recruit loads of players from elsewhere and make it work. And the history of the game suggests the best way is produce your own players and make smart recruits.
100%.
Every single club that's won Super League. We sometimes scratch our heads and go, oh, how is it only 3 or 4 teams have won Super League? Well, I'll tell you why, because they've got great academies and they recruit really well internationally. You know what, we can complicate it to the nth degree, can't we, Paul? But what you've just said is the right, exactly, that's the model, isn't it?
100%. It's quite simple, really.
Yeah.
You know, you have to get into the right cycle, which we are now in as a club. So we're in that cycle of either being relegated, just missing relegation, and recruitment really hampered us because you can only really, you know, players, as you will know, will only commit to you if they know that you're going to be in Super League. So the club was historically last off the rank too often, but we've really stabilised ourselves. Obviously had a really good year last year, which has enabled us. Last year was a superb year, and it enabled us to do some smarter recruitment, for example, in the Championship. So we picked up Frankie Holton, who has been superb for us this year from Featherstone, and I think he will be for years to come. And not many people have picked him out, but that was proper recruitment, as I would call it. But going forwards, we've got to get better with our overseas recruitment. We've got to get better at that.
Is the pressure, though? I always find this. I look at other clubs when I was playing at St Helens and look at overseas recruits and sometimes feel this is to appease the fans. Right, we've signed player X, big overseas name, to appease the fans. Is the pressure to do that sort of thing?
Personally, I don't think so. Not from Hull KR's point of view. I think we're progressing well. I think that our club, we want to look for smart players who give everything for the share. Of course, that's a given. But I don't feel pressure. I think going forwards now, the position that we're in as a club, probably I'll feel more pressure because I think we're kicking on. Yeah. You know, when you're in the bottom 2 or 3, it's in a perverse sort of way, you can only go up. Yeah. But as you start to climb, everybody's aspirations are, we got to the Final Four last year. We got to the
danger of setting the bar.
But I welcome that, because that's what we should be about,
But inevitably the bar will drop, He saw it with Wolves,
will.
He saw it with Stoke and so on, and that's what happens. And then as soon as that bar comes down, it's like, well, hold on, 3 years ago we were in a semi-final in a playoff.
I know. But I do think genuinely our fan base is really realistic too.
What's the biggest challenge for the club right now and for you when you drive in, when you're driving it? Where do you live? You're still living locally, aren't you? Still,
yeah.
I'm just picturing you, one hand on the wheel, driving over the Humber Bridge.
What cars are driving, Will?
A bit of Dre on the iPlayer.
Hardly.
iPlayer. That's the BBC thing.
On the iPlayer.
Yeah, I live in one of these, the Hull villages. Yeah.
So go on. The challenges, because they're probably two separate things for the club that you see it right now, and for you personally, Paul.
So, for the club, the biggest challenge for the club has been, which we've overcome, and now we've got to do something with it. So we talk about on field, which is recruitment. You've got to recruit better, but you've got to have your academy kids coming through. But our biggest handicap has been we haven't owned the ground. So we've now bought the ground, bought the stadium, and we've bought 15 acres of land around, or the option to buy 15 acres of land around the stadium. So sustainability is massive. So financial sustainability, we can't do that with our current ground because our main stand is old. It's not good enough corporate facilities to generate enough revenue so that Neil, to be frank, doesn't have to put his hand in his pocket. We haven't got the training facilities that we really want to have sustainability with the academy to really say, why would you want to go anywhere else? So that's what we need to build, which is why we bought the land around the stadium. So vision-wise, it's to develop the stadium and the land, and I think that will create a lot more sustainability for the club as a whole. For me personally, look, I have to be honest. I beat myself up every day. Yeah, genuinely beat myself up every day, and it's the fear of failure. Yeah, I don't want to fail for the staff. I don't want to fail for Neil. I don't want to fail for the fans. You know, but that drives me on. That drives me on. So for me, my ambition is fairly limitless. I honestly think we can get challenging in the next 2 or 3 years.
Challenging for?
Well, there's only 2 honours at the moment, isn't there? Challenge Cup and Grand Final. So, and I don't think that's off limits. Well, Challenge Cup's certainly not off limits, and I don't think in time to come the Grand Final isn't neither.
Let's talk. There you go, another round of applause. Controversial word, rebranding.
Yeah.
Right? You knew it was coming up. Just as I'll do my own little survey here. Anyone got an issue in the crowd with the rebranding? Pop your hand up. No. That's interesting. Okay. Did have? Yeah. And then it grew on you. Well, look, I'll tell you what, because what we'll do, you can handle the questions. We'll do a little Q&A at the end as well, and you guys can ask your questions. From what I read, and I may well be wrong from that response, but there was, as with any rebranding, you know, I'll give you an example. My godfather, Franny Lee, changed the badge at Manchester City. Name drop. From the round to drop that mic there.
That's a good drop. Mic drop, that is.
Know, but he changed the badge to, you'll remember it, in the late 90s, to a badge when they had the Kappa kit with the 3 stars above, which meant absolutely nothing, and they had, 3 stripes on there, whatever. He changed it because he wanted it to look Italian. He wanted it to look like, again, this is probably all the things that you were thinking in the rebrand. Mm. And then, thank God they've changed it back. I'm nostalgic. I'm a sentimentalist. I like the old badge. It's not identical to what it was, but it's got the Lancashire Rose on there. It's got the 3 rivers on there. It's back to what it says, Manchester City. The badge is always going to be controversial. You know that.
Yeah.
And you were there for 4 years before, so you know how much it means to people. And, again, people had at their funerals the badge and a flag draped over their coffin and so on. So we spoke to Chris Radlinski about this, didn't we, when Wigan changed their badge. How much sort of danger did you think you were getting into when you were going down into that territory?
Clubs have to evolve. So you have to evolve over time. I felt I wasn't involved in the rebrand at the beginning, so all the genuine credit for the rebrand goes to Craig Franklin, our head of marketing and comms, who did an unbelievable job over a period of a year, talking to all the stakeholders in the club to get a real good understanding, which is so important of where we need to be at. And the feeling was that some wanted to keep the 3 crowns of an element, but we needed to modernise the club. We needed to bring, we have the Robin through, because I think it's a quote we've said a few times, but kids don't want 3 crowns in the cap. If you're going to commercialise the club and bring revenue, we brought the Robin through. So we've got in the crest, we brought the blend of the 2 together. And I have to say that, and it's not to say that some people aren't happy with it, but I honestly can say I never got 1 email of complaint, not 1, which is quite unbelievable, really, for a rebrand. And I take no credit for it whatsoever. Craig and the team.
He's got all the emails then. You've just thrown him under the bus. If you want to email Craig, it's Craig@Franklin.
I had nothing to do with it,
UK. There's nothing to do with Paul.
I'm just thinking of all those Hull fans in Lanzarote this summer who've got the old badge tattooed on their calf. I still see it with the City fans these days.
But with brands, with like businesses, you look at like Adidas as a brand, like a bigger sports brand. Well, there's loads, but they all change.
Yeah, they evolve.
So what Rugby League were like stuck in this thing where it's traditional. We've got to stick to our.
But some people are sentimentalists. So, I'm 38 and I feel attached to something because it's the past. It's something of your father, of your grandfather, and so on. You must have.
Yeah, there's still an essence of it though in the new badge.
Yeah.
If you said to a fan, we're going to this new badge, we'll create a bit more revenue and we can sign this great player. Are you going to do it? Yes or no?
Is it trying to erase underachieving history and look for a more exciting future? Because that's what, for example, I keep saying the City connection, but I just know that for a fact it was about trying to have something more exciting to look forward to.
No, it was when the original crest, when we put it alongside some of the other crests in Super League, it looked what it was, which was tired and old, and it needed modernising, and our younger fan base couldn't associate with it, and we needed to be able to do that. Yeah. So and I say the word evolve because I do think that's what we've done. We haven't completely changed it. We've just evolved it.
Yeah, that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good management of your brand, isn't it?
Yeah.
To change it subtly over time and
Keep it fresh, and we'll probably have a look again in 10 years' time and see where...
Change it back.
Change it back. And go
Don't get the new one tattooed.
and launch it under retro.
Again, Craven Street. Is that Craig or is that you? Is that your department?
No.
That's gone down very well.
Yeah,
I mean, not
yeah.
just Hull KR fans, the Super League fans across the board are having that.
Yeah, we're really pleased with it. I mean, we've invested quite a lot into it, but yeah, it was our handicap.
That's your jungle.
That end of the pitch, it was embarrassing. It was empty land. People knew that it was only really the Hull FC fans that we needed to put into the terrace. You might as well have given them binoculars at the same time.
I used to love when they had the guy change the scoreboard. Does anybody remember that? The old, when they had a guy flipping the numbers in. Like, what score is it? We're losing.
It's called Steve, John.
Steve,
It's called
shout out Steve. Shout out to Steve.
We're losing 10-6 to Sheffield. Oh no, we scored. It's 12. He's not done it yet.
So
we turned it into a real strength.
There you go.
So we turned it into a real strength, and lots of clubs have got like fan experience parks, etc. But our bad fortune, we've turned it into our good fortune, which is we actually had a significant amount of space pitch side. Everybody else has to put it in the car park because they've got 4 stands. But we've turned it into something that the fans really enjoy. I think we've done a pretty decent job on it in terms of making it exactly that. Lots of street food, band, DJ, etc.
Match days have to be an experience. You know that from your Premier League days.
That was really on my mind. But also there's lots of elements to it. So it's a true fan experience. I think our fans love it. It's really popular, and it has brought more revenue in. So as a chief exec, we don't do everything just for the fun of it. We've got to get some revenue back. But the biggest thing for supporters in any club is it's dwell time. How do you get fans in early? We've got the perfect
money.
Spending money, and then if we win, generally staying later. And that's the perfect area for us to do that. If we win, the music's on straight away. Everyone from the East Stand heads that way and has a good time.
And if you lose, what happens then?
Shut the Craven Street down. Yeah,
Shut it
closed.
down.
Putting the chain across the ground.
Get it shut.
There's
price
about
beer.
50 diehards that go over for a pint, and I think that's it.
So,
And that's one thing you used to speak about.
Toronto.
Toronto. You used to come home and say, Toronto's great, but you should see the match day experience.
Yeah.
Independent brewers, different hot dogs, burger stands, people just are there for the occasion. And that's something that I think sometimes Rugby League...
His pockets were
matches
being
miss.
lined by Brian Noble to say that at the time. We didn't know that.
Fucking hell. I just think, look, we patronise rugby league fans all the time.
Yeah.
They say, what do you want? Oh, we'll give you a really naff pie and a really bad
Couldn't
cup
agree
of
with
tea.
you more.
And I'm like, that's what we break it down to, this like entry-level assumption.
And a mascot.
No, that's what we want, and it's not like there's loads of people want better things than that,
And
just putting craft beer, street food, different food. The culinary scene, the food scene in Hull has developed. It's not.
Yeah, and
not
it's a
where
real
it was.
family sport, and to take your family there, is it really all about hot dogs and burgers in today's game? It's not.
No, but it can be. But as long as it's good, why would you have a bad hot dog or a bad burger?
I know.
Just have a good one. And sell it for the money that it's worth.
So our vendors are genuinely independent vendors, and again, most people in the room will have probably been over there, and got a whole variety of different food, and it's really good. It's really proud of it, actually.
I love it. The most passionate John Wilkins got over the last 45 minutes was about
the
hot dogs.
burger.
Hot dog.
Yeah, it's not the
Who
hot
would eat
dogs
a
are
bad
shit.
hot dog?
Look, I want to open it up to you guys in about 50 minutes or so. A couple more things to talk about as well, because I know it was more than a hint. You were talking about the 15 acres that you bought around the ground, and obviously this fits in with Craven Street and match day experiences and so on, bringing in investors. So the longish, medium-ish term view is we're not moving ground, we're building a new stand, we're developing the area, and we're trying to compete with what's on the other side of the city.
Yep, we're looking to develop the option land that we can draw down on is a 7-year deal. So in effect, we've got to do something in 7 years.
And you're in a financial position to do that. How you've envisaged it?
As we sit here today, no. Have we got plans? Are we talking to people? Yes. So there'll be no... One thing I'm really key not to do is to do this. Drives me mad. These clubs that do these artist impressions of this is how the stadium's going to be, and then it's on the cutting room floor for the next 5 years.
Wakefield did a charcoal drawing. Did you see it? It was on Sky. Here's a charcoal sketch of what it might look like. You might as well put a Lowry painting up.
I know. When we do release any drawings, it will be because it's happening, and we won't release anything before then because, like I say, I'm just, I've seen it over the years. I think, this is what we're going to do, and it never happens. I don't think there's anything worse than raising expectations and then knocking people down again.
Let's talk about the realignment with IMG, and that might be people listening going like, oh, snore off, whatever. But I think it's a really interesting 5-10 minute conversation we can have, because for those who don't know, anyone listening, that you sat actually on both the Super League and the RFL realignment working groups and the strategic working groups, didn't you, Paul, that brought in IMG? And for those who don't know, IMG actually work for IMG. They do the Premier League productions. But IMG is a global sports events talent management company, headquarters in New York, I think. They've been owned by Endeavour since 2013. So this is a 12-year partnership at least. How much have you bought into the vision of this? How much do you believe in this new partnership going forward? How much of an impact will it, I guess this is what the guys in front of you want to hear, have on whole KR?
It had to happen. It had to happen. Look, I haven't been around for some of the other false dawns before, but IMG are a worldwide brand and a real serious player, and they're not getting involved in the game for it to go wrong. 12-year term says what it says, really. They're in it for the medium to long term. That'll be 3, if not 4 broadcast cycles. And clearly, what IMG will be doing is, we haven't done so many things well at all. So we don't elevate our best players like we should do as a sport. We don't make the big occasions bigger and better. We need to make the Challenge Cup better. We need to make the Grand Final better. You need to concentrate on the quality and make the quality better. And IMG are just the perfect company to be able to do that. They've done it before, and they've done it with other sports.
The sort of standout line, John, that I saw from this, and I want your view on this, is the idea to maximise the whole game's commercial value as one product. We spoke hours at end to Rob Elston about the future of Rugby League and the commercial future of Rugby League. How key do you think this move could be?
Well, I think one product's interesting to say that, because I think the game now has a really exciting opportunity. We've got more assets to our brand than we've had previously. We've had a men's game for a long time. We've got a women's game that draws audiences. We've got a disability, at the World Cup and is being played. So all of a sudden, then we've got community, grassroots, and we've got junior rugby. Then we've got a huge number of elements that are commercially viable. So the realignment for me is exactly the right thing to do. I think us being segregated into different parts, like the Super League on its own.
Challenge Cup over there.
Just a car crash.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah.
It was mental. It was this crazy decision, but we've got it realigned. And IMG, why would they get involved? They see the upside of everything being aligned again. They're in it. They're a business, aren't they? They see an upside. For me, the most exciting thing is a business like IMG doesn't get involved unless they see an upside. And that's exciting, because they could take us anywhere. They took the Premiership deal, the Champions League deal, from 3.5 billion to 4.4 billion or something. And it's like, wow.
They know what they're doing. And I think the most exciting thing for me is that they're doing it over 12 years. So, when somebody like a global company comes to you as a strategic group in terms of being interested in getting involved, the first thing I thought was, are you coming in to flip it? Are you coming in, put money in, sell it in 3-4 years, etc.? Quite the opposite. They want to work with the clubs.
There's no break clause when they watch Wakefield against Salford on a Thursday night. Have you got a receipt?
No, there's no break clause. So, they're in it for the long term. And I think that's probably the best news out of the lot, because, they themselves say it will take a couple of years to start turning it. But when they do, they've got an unbelievable track record. Euro basketball, which is huge, across Eastern Europe, etc. They've turned that from, a relatively small sport to a huge European sport. And also, I've been party to a lot of the conversations, and it's all the big guns involved in IMG. It's not, oh, it's so-and-so account director.
Well, Barney Francis doesn't fuck about, and he's just come to IMG from Sky Sports.
All the key people have come to the table, and I've consistently been communicating to us. So yeah, I'm genuinely really excited about it.
If we outsource this too late, is this, this sort of relationship feels like naturally should have happened before now, right? What I look at Rugby Union, have always outsourced sort of lots of their sport in terms of now they're outsourcing their coaching and attracting rugby league coaches. Yeah. Commercially, this is needed, right, Paul?
Yeah.
But is it how far on the doomsday clock to needing this are we?
It's definitely not too late, but I reckon in a year's time it would have been.
Yeah.
I think it was now or never. And I think we're unbelievably fortunate to have attracted IMG to the table.
I think for me, the important thing that's come of this is we're getting voices and opinions from outside the game, which we haven't done for a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of, what do we think? Well, no, we're trying to grow into other markets. Let's take people from those different markets and see how they perceive our sport and see how we can grow the game. Because I think sometimes we've been very inclusive and look within for growth, whereas sometimes you need to kind of stretch your borders and take advice and feedback from outside, and they're one of the biggest players in the game, aren't they?
Well, yeah, their track record speaks for itself. Tony Smith, another elephant in the room. Let's address it. He's done wonders for this club, as you mentioned. Last season was unbelievable.
Yep.
Was that awkward for you? That how this all happened? How he sort of dropped the bomb that he was leaving? How much communication did he have with him over it? And where are you at now with it? There's the wry smile.
It was a surprise.
It was a surprise.
It was a surprise. Yeah. None of us were prepared for it. So, I've got nothing more to say in it than it was a surprise.
But where does that come from? It's a genuine surprise. A genuine surprise.
Yeah, genuine surprise. So it was, April? Look, Tony was out of contract at the end of this season. So, and as you know, May the 1st, you've got recruitment, and as people know, conversations happened before May the 1st with some players, but ultimately you can't do anything till May the 1st. And it's a very difficult situation for myself and Neil to understand how we can attract players when we don't know who the coach is going to be. So that was something that, what was an issue for us, undoubtedly. It was in April, but we were talking to Tony about an extension. So in that respect, it was a surprise.
Why did he choose to drop a grenade and not save it till the end of the season? Because, look, again, devil's advocate from the outside, and is it coincidence that form kind of drops off the cliff after an announcement like that? And how do you see the sort of rest of the season going? If you're a player, John, you'd have been in a situation where you're not going to be playing for that coach next season. Does that have an impact on the next few months?
Not if you've got professional integrity.
Well, not everyone has that.
No, but they should. They should, and if you want to challenge, they should. They should have and this is, I think, when in the absence of sort of clarity and a bit of leadership, look, it just opens the doors for things to become a bit squiffy. And actually, what it does is it just allows people to pin something on something. So Tony leaving was like the ideal opportunity a downturn in form could have happened anywhere. But when it's, Tony's leaving, it's because of that. Well, it's just not. It's far too complicated. Sport is so complicated. You can't pin it on one thing or the other.
Also, our recent run has coincided with, a real tough injury list for us. We've had plenty out in the last few weeks, and in some season-ending injuries too. So,
personally, were you wounded by Tony's announcement? Like, how did you? No, when you heard it, right?
I wasn't wounded. No.
How did it feel though when you heard it?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I genuinely was shocked. I was in the room next to him. So he was doing his press announcement, and I was in my office. So.
And what was the next few minutes after that?
Yeah.
What was the scene?
Yeah. For myself, Neil was away, so he was on the phone to me, and the media team. It was chaos.
Yeah.
Did you know before the press conference? Or did you listen to it live?
No.
You found out in the press conference.
No, I didn't know.
But when you've had a relationship like that with him...
I got a message from Neil as the press conference started.
Yeah, but when you've had a relationship like you had and the season that you'd had the season before, Is there something you're not telling us? I mean, I'm sure when we open it up, there's going to be a few questions. But was there something that had happened, something that had exploded behind the scenes? Because you say you were completely blindsided by it.
No, if you're asking me, have we had some big stand-up arguments? No, we haven't. No. That's not been the case.
Yeah.
Have we had disagreements? Absolutely. Do most CEOs and head coaches have disagreements on various things? Absolutely. But, is there a moment where, it was that day, and we've never recovered from that day? No, nothing like that ever happened.
Look, move it forward.
Not in my eyes.
We'll open up to these guys, but the future. Willie Peters, deal done. There was a kind of, a few weeks where people were thinking who's coming in and so on.
Yeah.
How excited are you about that?
Yeah, genuinely, we're really excited. We've spent a lot of investment in the last couple of years, invested in quite a lot of our younger first-team players, and we play an expansive type of football, which Tony's introduced and very successfully at that. What we so the announcement was a real surprise, but what wasn't a surprise was we had a coach out of contract at the end of the season. So clearly my job, I was already looking in terms of my feelers were out. Leeds Rhinos were in the market at that very time.
Had you tried to tie Tony down to a longer deal?
We were having discussions. Absolutely.
Is that what's happened here, right? Tony is not playing ball, dragging his heels. You've gone out to market to find a new coach. He's spit his dummy out.
John, I don't know.
I know, but that, to me, look, I'm outside of it. That appears what's happened, isn't it?
So I suppose when it did happen, we were already at second base in respect of I knew what the market was. I knew, because I had to. It's my job. We didn't know where we were going to be with a coach next year, so I'd already understood where the market was. And as I say, as it happened, Rhinos were in the market too, so I needed to know where they were at. We spoke to Willie Peters, or I spoke to him originally quite early on. And we didn't want to radically change the club. We'd invested a lot in the club. But what we wanted was someone that really genuinely understood the value of bringing the academy kids through, first and foremost. Willie wasn't a development coach. So that's where he originally came from. Two, he's a 6-year served assistant coach under some
great pedigree, Wayne Bennett, Souths, and
some very, very good head coaches. Under Anthony Sebold, who's a big friend of the club. So we spoke to quite a few people. He had a remarkable knowledge of Super League. So he was a player many years ago.
Played for Wigan.
Wigan. But his knowledge of Super League, he watched all the games. So whilst he hadn't coached over here, it was like talking to someone who'd coached over here. He will tell you himself when he comes over here. But when I first spoke to him, he said that when you ask the question, is your wife going to be happy? Is your family going to be happy coming over? He'll openly say that when his wife was his girlfriend, he told his girlfriend that one day he's going to coach in the Super League. So if we're going to be boyfriend-girlfriend, you need to know we're going to England one day. So he was, this has been a key focus of his.
She was thinking London, he's thinking Hull.
Yeah. So it's a game over here that, he's immersed himself in already, which is really important because, don't need to tell these guys, it's a different game over here. It is a different game. So there's a whole load of positives. Quite a few of our senior players have had chats with Willie now, and really excited about bringing him over.
Go on, John.
No, I was going to say, you've got Danny Mcguire there also. And look, I think Willie Peters and Danny Mcguire, actually, what an exciting coaching combination that you've got going forward. You're like incredible, great young coaches who bring that, I think that is sort of a fresh element. You talk about rebranding, well, that's just got a really, I think, vibrant feel to it as a coaching team.
It's a real good point. They've gotten real well already in terms of the conversations they've had, so I think that they'll go great together.
Paul, I really appreciate you coming down, and look, you knew we were going to put you on the spot, and that's what you'd expect, so thank you so much for being so honest. And
no worries.
Look, we're going to open it up to you guys. I can see a lot of tired faces, a lot of empty glasses, but put your hands together for Paul Lakin, everybody.